passion, talent, development. NCAA hockey offers all that, and its players graduate at a 93% rate. Trevor Zegras.
And they score on the lacrosse move.
Jake Gensel.
Gensel banks it towards the goal. He scores.
Cale Makar.
Cale Makar, he scores!
Stars on campus before the NHL stage. Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
My goodness gracious me!
Visit collegehockeyinc.com and follow at College Hockey.
Welcome to College Hockey Today, Frozen 4 edition. He is Brad Schlossman with the Grand Forks Herald. I am Jayson Hajdu with College Hockey Inc. We are down to 4. Some days it's felt like the season has blown by. Some days it's been a bit of a crawl, but here we are down to the last 3 games of the season. Really compelling Frozen 4 field, a very decorated Frozen 4 field. Schloss, much has been made. Until I say it right now, we're not going to use the term blue bloods on this podcast. We're going to hear that enough the next week plus. But 4 very storied programs in this field. 4 teams that are, despite all of their championship history, in the field together for the first time ever.
Yeah. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 in all-time national championships. But interestingly enough, there's been some droughts too with those teams. Like Michigan hasn't won a title in 20, I'm trying to do my math on the fly, 8 years. Wisconsin hasn't even been to a Frozen 4 in 16 years. You know, North Dakota won, but North Dakota hasn't been to a Frozen 4 in 10 years. So these are really traditional power programs, but it's not like they've just been dominating for the last decade or anything. So I think that's kind of an interesting fact about these 4 teams. So,
well, even zooming in, I think I don't think there are many people out there who expected Wisconsin to be one of the last 4 standing. Rewind to the summer and even in the fall, I don't think many people envisioned North Dakota being there. Yeah. And Denver hit a rough patch after Christmas as well, where they were slowly drifting towards the bubble neighborhood in terms of NPI. So other than Michigan, who's been really good, they haven't lost back-to-back games all season. Even a winding road for 3 of these 4, despite that that marquee aspect.
Yeah, and then the winding road kind of at different times, as you said. It was for North Dakota, it was the summer, and it was the spring, and they were trying to fill a roster under Dane Jackson, and they needed to fill 11 holes this summer alone. And I'm not talking about guys who are already committed that you plug in there. Like those guys are off to the side. They had their 4 guys coming in. They needed to find 11 new guys this summer, and they didn't
have a center depth chart.
Yeah, they had no centers, and now they have like an abundance of centers, as evidenced by, you know, this weekend they lose Ollie Josephson. They moved Jack Kernan into his spot, and he has a monster weekend. And so they really came through there, and you know, Wisconsin went into they hit their stumbling block, you know, kind of coming into the tournament. They had that rough loss to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. They weren't even sure they were going to make it. I mean, it was Dartmouth winning that game got them in, right? Like if Dartmouth loses that game to Princeton, Wisconsin misses the tournament.
And then they paid back Dartmouth.
Reminds me of the 2014 NCAA tournament where North Dakota did the same to the Badgers. And then, as you said, Denver was going through major struggles in January. And then they found out, in the midst of those major struggles, that the goalie that started every game for them, Quentin Miller, was out and injured. They brought in a guy named Johnny Hicks, and he has not lost yet. So a lot of different adversity at different times for 3 of these 4 teams. And as you said, Michigan really has not hit a lot of bumps this year. North Dakota really hasn't once the year got started. Probably a little one in October right away. But it's been different journeys for all 4 teams.
What did you make of the regionals? I thought lacking a little bit of drama, not only in terms of the head-to-head results, but just in the game flows. Last year, we saw quite a few comebacks. teams rallying after one period, after two periods. We really didn't see any of that this time around. Some lopsided scores, although some of those were inflated by empty netters and even multiple empty netters. But just your general take on the regional round.
Yeah, I think you're right. Not a lot of chaos. There were a few good games that stood out to me, but last year was chaos, like game in and game out, and wild comebacks. And the team that scored first, I think you had the stat that they had a losing record last year, which was absolutely unbelievable. This year there were some games that just felt like his teams got up early and just kind of cruised along after that. So, I don't know if we're going to go through game by game, but the ones that stood out to me, I thought Duluth and Penn State was really entertaining.
Sure was.
I thought Michigan Duluth was very entertaining. The two Michigan State games were pretty good, and I guess those are probably the ones that stand out. The Western regionals don't stand out as much as like tons of drama, which I'm sure the fans of Denver and North Dakota were very happy that they weren't sitting there. But the neutrals who like these down to the wire thrilling games probably would have liked a little more drama.
The Duluth, Michigan game felt like one of those classic instances of where if this game goes 5 more minutes, maybe the outcome is different. It didn't seem like the plant line ever left the ice, or Ty Hansen for that matter, but just another week where Duluth just took a little too long to get to their best game.
Yeah, that Michigan jumped on them right away with some opportunistic plays, or just maybe opportunistic isn't the right word, but when they had chances, they took them. They made a great play on the shorthanded goal, reading the drop pass and picking it off. A really nice tip from Will Horkoff. So Michigan off that great start, but yeah, Duluth really came back strong in that game. That was impressive effort. It may have won Max Plant the Hobey Baker, just how well he played in that game, and that's kind of what he did all year long. He was phenomenal, and Jack Ivankovic, he had to make some really clutch saves down there. I felt if Duluth tied that, Michigan was in trouble, because that game was tilting one way, and Michigan held on to that one. And but a tremendous effort by Duluth. My other takeaway was, as much as the plant line dominated, Hunter Anderson became a thing in the second half of the year. Mm-hmm. I thought he was dangerous during that game, and I've seen Duluth several times in the second half, and that was a number I kept checking. Number 11 kept making plays, and he can really shoot the puck. His shot is quite dangerous, and being able to get some secondary scoring helped them. Especially they lost Callum Arnott. He was their secondary scoring, and so that probably is part why you saw the plant line out there so much.
I think another thing that struck me is the number of times that good teams were absolutely ambushed early in games. You mentioned Michigan jumping all over Duluth. North Dakota did it to Quinnipiac. Denver did it to Western Michigan. Just teams, really good teams that you expect to come out of the gate strong, just looked stunned in the opening minutes.
Yeah, that was some of those were really surprising to me. The one I saw, North Dakota and Quinnipiac, I had to watch Quinnipiac play Providence the day before, and it was kind of the opposite. Like Quinnipiac was just buzzing, and they were making plays all over the ice, and it was really impressive. And having watched that going into the final game, everyone is, what do you think? I'm like, Quinnipiac looked great. North Dakota's going to have to play really well. I did not envision what happened in the final there. We had seen Denver and Western play so many tight games, and in that series really go back and forth. And, even going back to last year, all the overtime games that they had played, those are just things that I really thought that Cornell was going to be a tougher out for Denver. The way Denver won that game against a tough Cornell team, I thought that was quite impressive.
So our semifinals are as follows, and we're going to get to the rink really early local time on Thursday. First semifinal, an old WCHA classic matchup, North Dakota against Wisconsin, and then in the nightcap, Michigan against Denver, which has the makings of game of the year type stuff. 49 total draft picks in this Frozen Four. That's the second most ever that we have on record. At least we've got 4 of the nation's top 9 scoring offenses, a couple of Hobey finalists, 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, a 3 seed. Let's start with that North Dakota Wisconsin semifinal, since that's the first one that day. Give me your general take looking at that matchup.
Yeah, we didn't even really talk about the craziest game of the regional, and that was Wisconsin finding a way against a really good Michigan State team. And that watching that game play out was, Michigan State was a complete team. They had everything you want in a college hockey team to make a run. And that just goes to show that one and done, you just don't know. You can do everything right, build the right team, and then everyone's good enough to where there's no guarantees that you're even going to make the Frozen Four. And Michigan State has had 2 great teams that I felt were constructed really well. High-end offense, some grit and physicality, some younger players and older players. Trey Augustine back in net. You can't get better than that. And a lot of credit to Wisconsin, because when you're looking at a team like that won the league and that was really consistent all year long, and you're down by 2 goals late in the third, it's not looking good for Wisconsin. But the Badgers found a way to win that game. Pretty impressive. Wisconsin is built a little bit like an NCHC team.
Yeah, it's a Mike Hastings roster for sure.
It is. They play really hard. They've got a lot of physicality. They've got older players mixed in. I feel like that's he certainly brought some of that Minnesota State flavor, some of those teams he made runs with, to Wisconsin. And he's kind of mixed in some of the higher end players like a Quinn Finley that he probably didn't have on some of those Minnesota State teams. So I think he's done a really good job. We kind of look at Wisconsin and they're the second. Actually, I misspoke earlier. I said that they would have been out if Dartmouth won, but that actually would have been UConn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, my bad. There are probably people screaming at the podcast already. We got it fixed. We got it fixed. So they're one of the last teams in the tournament. But like in January, this team was number 3 in the MPI. Like this team was quite good for much of the year. They ran into some injury trouble for a while. I think that set them back. And now they're back here in the Frozen Four. I think if you were to say in January that these are the 4 teams, you would have said, well, yeah, Wisconsin makes total sense. Like they've been really good. They're number 3. They have a pro style team. But the way it played out, I think you might have had some people a little surprised that they got through that regional, but that wouldn't have been the case a couple months ago. So I think that's a good team.
To your point, they're the oldest team of the 4, both in terms of average age, by quite a bit actually, and then the largest group of seniors, which you mentioned.
Yep, and that's kind of the team he wanted to build there. North Dakota, I mean, they're also built to win this thing. They've got a lot of elements, and I thought the Quinnipiac game, I think Dane Jackson wanted to build a team that was kind of a playoff style team, one that was going to be hard, physical, win battles all over the ice, big, strong, like your traditional, what you think of as North Dakota teams. And that was, to me, that was on display against Quinnipiac. North Dakota won a lot of puck battles. Quinnipiac is the shortest team in the country, and a big, strong North Dakota team, leaned on them and won a lot of battles and ended up winning that game. So, and if Jan Spunar plays like he did this weekend, I mean, he was absolutely dialed in. I thought Ram Pecknold had a really apt comment when he said that he was ahead of the play all night, because Quinnipiac made some dot-to-dot plays, and every time he wasn't making an acrobatic save. He moved square, and he made extremely difficult saves look easy at times. There's one play where they moved it dot to dot to Ethan Wittenbach in the left circle, and Wittenbach caught it, and Spunar was already over there, and he was out a little bit of his crease to challenge, and I think Wittenbach was off guard because he was like, didn't know what to do. He like froze. Like I think he couldn't believe that he was already there and he had nothing to shoot at. But that was what he was talking about. He knew where the play was. He read it. He moved over there. Didn't leave a lot of rebounds. A sensational weekend from Jan Spunar.
Also, his puck handling to me is such an X factor. And this is not hyperbole in terms of puck movement. It's like having a third defenseman back there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that he's making the stretch passes out of the zone. He goes back and gets pucks and puts them to his defenseman in such a smooth way that the defenseman can start transitioning right away. Mm-hmm. You know, in my time covering North Dakota, I've never seen a North Dakota goaltender that is as good with the puck as Jan Spunar. And I think that does lend into helping his defensemen get breakouts, because he just is able to move it to them so efficiently. So Jan Spunar versus Daniel Hauser in that first game. Hauser's had some ups and downs this season. He had a good regional. So that had to be nice to see for the Badger staff.
I was listening to you on the CHN pod earlier today, which is great, by the way. Everyone should check that out. And you mentioned that, yes, and we've had this conversation before, first round picks are great, but this time of year, you really need an experienced supporting cast. And to that point, North Dakota in this field has the highest scoring freshman class, but they also have the highest scoring senior class.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I feel like with the freshman class and how good it's been with, Will Zellers and Cole Reshny, and, we saw Jack Kernan go off this weekend. I feel like it's almost overlooked that what's really also driven this team is Ellis Rickwood, Dylan James, Ben Strinden. Those are three of their top four scorers. And the Dylan James really has been clutch for North Dakota. He has 21 goals. In the last 10 years, the only guy from North Dakota with more goals than him is Jackson Blake. He's not like your typical super skilled guy that's going to walk players and go through them. He is a hard-nosed 200-foot straight line explosive speed type player that happens to score a lot. So he's one of those guys who could have signed after last year, decided to come back, make a run. In his words after the game, he was asked why he came back, and he said he wanted to turn North Dakota back into the powerhouse it's supposed to be. And he's done that. So, some of these teams have guys that could have turned pro, and when those guys come back, I think that's a huge boost for these teams. And I think of, I'm guessing Quinn Finley's a guy that probably could have gone. Christian Fitzgerald certainly had free agent interest. And when you can get an older player back, that's a huge deal.
I want to rewind a little bit. We talked about Hauser and Spunar, and they tried to research this yesterday, and near as I can tell, this is the first Frozen Four in history where all four starting goaltenders will be freshmen. All came from the CHL too, but all four freshman goalies.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about, that all these guys are rookies. You usually see guys that develop over their time, and goaltending can be a position where it takes a while. Some of these guys have played a lot of junior hockey, so there's that. Yeah. Some of these guys have played on big stages before. I think of Jack Ivankovic, who's, was sensational at the U18s for Canada. But yeah, it's, I didn't know who Wisconsin's starter was going to be at the start of the year. I didn't know who North Dakota's was going to be.
Right.
And certainly I didn't know who Denver's was going to be. So like Jack Ivankovic's really the only one we penciled in at the start and said, well, that's the goalie. The other three, I don't think those would have been the guys I guessed at the start of the year. So you never know how things are going to pan out. And it just so has happened that these freshmen have taken the reins and gone with it.
Okay, let's dive into the semifinal nightcap. Denver against Michigan. Michigan, the number 1 overall seed. Not much to give in this matchup here. Break it down for us.
I'm just kind of impressed by, again, how Denver is able to defend and keep scores down at crunch time.
Yeah.
It's not always like that for these Pioneer teams. Like the last time Denver won the national title, the Pioneers were giving up a lot of goals that year. Like they were playing track meet hockey, and then all of a sudden they got to the tournament, and I think like every game was 2-1. They found a way to shut it down. And, Denver went through a stretch in early January that we kind of alluded to earlier this pod, where they were giving up a ton of goals. They gave up 8 in a series to Maine to after break. Then they gave up 10 in a series to Western Michigan. Then they gave up 7 to North Dakota. And now all of a sudden, they go and shut out Cornell. They give up 2 to Western, and one of them I think was late. That's kind of been some of their magic, is that when it hits the tournament, they have been able to really keep scores down for opponents, and they haven't given up many goals. So they're kind of back at it again, and they are going to be facing the number 1 scoring offense in the country. So that should be a great matchup for those two contrasting styles. Obviously, Denver's, headliners are actually on the back end. It's Eric Polkamp and it's Boston Buckberger. I think I mentioned on, before that, I think Polkamp's success has overshadowed how good Boston Buckberger is. There are coaches around the NCHC who think Buckberger's even better than Polkamp. Like, he is that good. He just doesn't score as many goals. I mean, he has 10 goals as a defenseman, so he still does. He's just not, Polkamp has 18 and he hits a slap shot 100 miles an hour. So he's really good. They've had some guys come on offensively for them. James Reeder has had to break out sophomore year. That's really helped. Kyle Chazowski had a great regional. That really helped.
McMorrow was a big boost as well.
Getting McMorrow back is probably, when they were going through that rough patch, they did not have McMorrow. People may remember he got hurt at the World Juniors, and he was out. He's a playoff style player, really good, all over the ice, valuable player, and he's clutch for that team. So they've got him back. And then I also heard, I can't remember where it was on the interview, that David Carl kind of mentioned that Christian Epperson was out for a while with an injury or illness, and even when he was back, it was affecting him.
I think that was on the coach's media call earlier this week. Yeah,
I was unaware that he was really hampered for an extended period of time, not just the 3 games he missed. And he's back in himself again. So that probably helps Denver going into this series against Michigan, where the Wolverines get by their regional without Michael Hage. He barely played in the regional. He played 646 against Duluth. So 2 weeks off, that should I would think if he's healthy enough to get on the ice there, that 2 weeks off should mean he's a full go for the regional. And that would be a big lift for them. And, speaking of guys who came back, TJ Hughes has had free agent interest for multiple years now. He was a big free agent after his sophomore year. He ends up staying 4 years. I think you did the point breakdown for career points in the NCAA tournament. I think TJ Hughes leads all players by like 77 career points. It's not close anyway. He's had just a tremendous career, and he's a Hobey finalist for a reason, and that's a team that just they just have a lot of
it feels like their most complete team that we've seen in some time.
Yeah. And the we talk about the mix of older and younger players. You're going to hear a lot about the first rounders like Hage and Horikoff and Spence and McKinney, who are just outside the first round, and Valentini, who might go in the first round. The players that Michigan uses the most are senior Tyler Duke, junior Ben Robertson, senior Luca Fantilli, senior TJ Hughes. So they lean on their veterans as much as we talk about the upperclassmen. They have the veterans that I don't think some of their recently high-skilled teams had. They were leaning on their freshmen. This team leans on the veterans.
One of those upperclassmen is Jaden Perron. I think he's really elevated his game this year. We always knew he was a very good power play player, but I think he's taken his all-round game to another level and just added another weapon for them.
Yeah, he's one of the most skilled players. He has been, since his days in Chicago. Like, his skill level is off the charts. And I think the challenge for him was getting to the middle of the ice in the dangerous areas to score. And, I watched the game against Ohio State where he walked the puck through guys to the top of the crease and scored a goal.
That was unbelievable. Yeah.
And it's like he's taking pucks to the net now. That is something that he was not doing at North Dakota.
Looks confident.
Yeah, he's much more confident, and he's playing really well, which is really good to see. Super nice kid. And like you said, he's always been dangerous on the power play when he has time and space. Now he's actually creating some of that time and space for himself, which is the next step. And obviously his point total is more than doubled this year. If you looked like last year, he had over half his goals were power play goals. This year, most of them are not power play goals. He's scoring at even strength this year. So impressive year for Jaden Perron.
One more note on Denver. They are unbeaten in 15 games. That's the longest unbeaten streak. Entering a Frozen Four since Minnesota State brought a 17-gamer into the 2022 Frozen Four, and the Pios have also won 11 straight games. I forgot about that Minnesota streak a couple years ago. That was an insane. Good team that lost in the championship game. Do you have a gut feel on how this Final Four here will shake out?
I mean, my gut feel before was that Michigan State was going to win the championship. Yeah. So I don't know what my, gut feel is worth because they didn't get out of the regional. There are a lot of things I like about all four teams. That's, when I looked at the regional I covered, I did really like North Dakota coming out of that one. I did like Denver coming out of its regional. I think the one of the things we're going to be watching is these are two Big Ten versus NCHC teams, and the NCHC has been winning in the tournament. Is this the year the Big Ten finally does it? I mean, Michigan is really good. Wisconsin's a pretty complete team as well. Can they get through, or is it going to be the same old? Is it going to be the two NCHC teams, or are we going to turn over a new leaf here and see the Big Ten get through? I don't know what to think. You know what, the other thing I didn't mention about the regionals, the MPI all year long have been on the Big Ten and the NCHC, and some of the Eastern schools were not high in the MPI. And I know there was some comments like, is the MPI formula different than the pairwise, or what is it like? I'm not smart enough to break it down all, but it played out that way. The power was in the West this year. You know, the Western teams won in the tournament as well. I just don't know what to think going into these games. I feel like at this point, we've got some toss-up games. You know, I see North Dakota more than these other teams. This is the best North Dakota team I've seen in some time, probably since 2020, when that season got shut down due to the pandemic. This is the best Michigan team I've seen in. I'm trying to think the last Michigan team I've seen that's been this good, because the others had holes. Like they had some good teams, but like you could pick out, they were young. They had some holes that, you know, goaltending is at times been a question mark there, and it's not right now. Yeah, and Denver just like I said, they find a way to keep scores down at this time. This is not the best Denver team we've seen in recent years, but they're playing as well as any team in the country.
Yeah, maybe lacking those high-end game breakers we've seen from them, at least up front, but really relying on balance and, like you said, just general know-how this time of year. It's pretty phenomenal. Going to be two great games. I really like how both teams match up in the respective semifinals. It's going to be fun. Two great matchups. Let's that second semifinal has two Hobey Bakers going head-to-head, and TJ Hughes and Eric Polkamp. I know you had your Hobey call earlier this week. I won't ask you to divulge what was shared on that call. The hat trick will be announced tomorrow, Thursday. But I'm curious, in your eyes, as we look back at the top 10 finalists, since that announcement was made, if any specific players have helped or hurt their cause since then.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it always helps your cause to make the Frozen Four. I do think that, because as much as this is a season award, people have this in the back of their minds. As much as people like James Higgins, I think missing the tournament hurts James Higgins. He did not have a chance to play this weekend and let everyone see him make a dazzling play. So yeah, it's I think if you're looking at the Michigan State guys, you know, I think Augustine is probably going to get more votes than Stramel, even though a lot of people like Stramel. The other question I have is, how much stock are people going to put into players of the year in their leagues? Because Stavrov won player of the year over Wittenbach. Plant won player of the year over Polkamp. TJ Hughes won player of the year over McKenna and Stramel and Augustine. I do think that is something that they look at.
I mean, Max Plant was phenomenal. He was a threat to do damage every time he was on the ice, especially in that Michigan game. I think TJ Hughes, we've talked about this privately, offers a really compelling, almost the classic fourth-year senior, where it's a combination of recognition of a great senior year and recognition of a great career. We used to see those kinds of winners all the time. The award's gotten younger in recent years, and obviously there's a huge groundswell out there for Eric Polkamp. So I don't know if there's much more separation now than there was when the top 10 was announced, honestly.
I think McKenna needed to have a big weekend to work his way in there. I think he was on the outside looking in, and he needed to have one of those like big time weekends where he goes off and has 6 points or whatever, and to have a shot. I mean, if you made me take a guess at the hat trick guys, I really think Polkamp and Plant are going to be in it. And then I think Higgins and Hughes I think will also have I think those four: Polkamp, Plant, Higgins, Hughes. I don't know who's going to be in the hat trick of them. I think those are your true contenders. If the award comes outside of those, I would say actually let's even narrow it down. Higgins is not going to win. I think we're going to see Hughes, Plant, or Polkamp. I really think those are your. If the winner comes outside of those three, I will be floored.
Should say too, BC not making the tournament, no fault of James Higgins, who finished the year at a 14-game point streak. That was the longest in college hockey all season. A dynamic regular season, to be sure, but that's the way it goes during award season.
Yeah, who's the last one? Is was it Matt Carl that won the Hobey with missing the tournament?
Oh, yeah, that's going way back now.
It's been a real long time for that to happen. So you're right. Higgins was really good, and there's certainly a lot of people who like James Higgins, but it's really hard when you don't have that lasting a couple more games and your team's not in the tournament.
Okay, let's shift to some off-ice news here. We haven't yet gotten an announcement from St. Cloud State on who will replace Brett Larson as a head coach. Are you hearing anything? I've seen some rumblings out there in terms of a possible timeline here.
Yeah, I think they want to move quickly. I think even though the rules have changed around the transfer portal and these guys aren't able to go in right now, like last year. So we've seen a lot of teams like even announce their next head coach, early. Obviously you can't in this situation, but like North Dakota took a week last year, right, to name their new head coach. They're trying to move quickly, and even though guys can't go in the portal, they can start to look around. Like these guys are saying, what should I do? And you want a coach in there to come in and settle things down and give his vision and be able to start work on the roster as soon as you can. So I do think they're moving quickly. I've certainly heard some names of guys they're looking at. Every name I've heard, you kind of say, okay, yeah, that's who I would have probably had on my list as a candidate. So whoever comes in there is going to need to hit the ground running for sure, because you want to retain as many players as you can. And when there's coaching changes, there's always a risk of players leaving.
Yeah, more than ever, the cycle of the season cycle for college coaches year-round more than ever now. Porter Martone made his NHL debut last night for the Flyers. I think he started that game as well. Gives us a chance to talk about some notable signings since we've last chatted. There have been a ton of them. I'm not going to name them all. A lot of Penn State guys, some Cornell guys, and some guys that wouldn't surprise you at all, like a Trey Augustine. Did any of this action jump out to you in the last couple of days?
Yes. Some of it did. Hayes Hundley signing from St. Thomas, did not see that one. He's got a lot of tools. He could be a really good player. Did not see it happening this year. Kevin Radler, did not see that one coming. He's been in college 2 years. He ended up kind of being a backup both years at Omaha and at Penn State. Did not see that signing coming. Max Lundgren, Michael Rabel, Matt DeMarsico, Trey Augustine, Jonathan Castagna. Yep, saw all those coming. Those guys were very accomplished at the college level. Rabel and Lundgren both had just outstanding years. Ty Musialik, very deserving for him to get a contract to a guy whose career has really been up and down. Like he was a guy who did not go smooth for right away. He transfers to UConn, and all of a sudden Callum Tongue comes out of nowhere and is the starter, and he just kind of stuck with it. So
bit of a survivor, yeah.
So credit to Ty Musialik for what he was able to do, coming out the other side. And, Aiden Fink obviously had a tremendous career at Penn State and Hobey finalist last year. He was one of the best players at the Spengler Cup for the Selects. I really like Matt DeMarsico, as you know. I think that's a really good signing for Colorado. He shoots the puck a ton. I think it was the Spengler Cup when I first realized exactly how explosive of a skater he is too. I'm like, wow, he can actually really move. He's got that shot. I think that's I'll be curious to follow Matt DeMarsico in where he goes from here too. So yeah, some of these not surprising. Some of them I was like, did not have that on my bingo card.
Charlie Serrato signed as well yesterday, so clearly Penn State is going to have a very different look, especially up front.
Yes, they are, and they have some big name commits in the CHL that you'll see coming down that'll fill some of those spots. They might have to go in the portal to grab an older player to mix in as well.
Okay. Obviously, the Grand Forks Herald will have wall-to-wall coverage with North Dakota being in the Frozen Four, but exactly what are you working on between now and departure on Tuesday?
Yeah, a lot of preview stuff. I think, though, one of the things I'm going to try to work on once I arrive in Las Vegas is kind of some coverage on what's going on outside of the game. Try to bring some fans there, because fans probably, if you're not going, you might want to know, what is it like in Vegas at the Frozen Four? I'm curious too. I want to find out, and I'm going to write about it, and hopefully it's interesting, and fans who are not going can feel like they're there with photos, videos, and words from Las Vegas.
Okay, so we'll see you on Fremont Street. Sounds good.
Yes, sir. And on the Strip.
All right, safe travels. We'll see you then.
Yep. Thanks, Jason.
All right, everyone. We're down to 3 games, 4 teams, the Frozen Four. It's going to be great. 4 storied programs, 2 wonderful matchups in the semifinals. Enjoy the hockey.